Hi, as a warm-up for this video, I would like you to take just a few minutes to note on a piece of paper your answers to the following question. What are, according to you, the typical factors of success for a negotiator? Now, press pause and think for a few minutes. Welcome back. Probably some of you wrote down preparation, and you're right. Maybe others wrote down other points such as sharing the right information, knowing who your opposite number is, identifying your red line, having a sound reputation, packaging solutions the right way, etc. Now think again. All these brilliant ideas share one common feature. You need to take care of them before you reach the negotiation table. Otherwise, it will be much more delicate to improvise when you sit around the table. And indeed, all these ideas boil down to the same fundamental principle: preparation before action. As Roger Fisher used to say, there are three keys of success in negotiation: prepare, prepare, and prepare. Now the question is, how to get prepared? How to make sure you get ready for a negotiation even though you might not have a lot of time available? This module 2 will focus on this crucial topic, proposing a method of preparation which has proven highly reliable. Indeed, this method has several advantages. It is useful whatever the context and the object of the negotiation in question: buying and selling, managing a joint project, solving a dispute, etc. 2, it brings results whatever the time available, from a few minutes to several weeks, according, of course, to the importance of the negotiation. 3rd, you can use it on your own or with the whole team to prompt joint brainstorming. And as you will see, this method builds upon the 3 dimensions of any negotiation, which have been introduced in Module 1. It is structured as a system of 10 elements. We've tried hard to identify the missing 11th element, and so far nobody has found it. So as a result, we're pretty confident that this list of 10 points is fully complete. Would you like to try and identify them? I suggest you push pause again for a few minutes and list which points you usually look at when preparing for a negotiation. Ready? Okay, welcome back for this rapid overview of the 10 points, structured around the 3 dimensions. The first dimension is about people, who is involved, in which there are 3 elements. First, who will be around the negotiation table? Let's evaluate the personal relationships existing between them. 2, who is above the negotiators, giving them instructions which must be respected, as these people are the real decision makers. That's what we call the mandate. 3rd, who is neither around the table nor above the negotiators, but somewhere else in the landscape, and holding a stake in the negotiation which will take place without them. We call them stakeholders. The second dimension is about the problem. What is at stake? In which 4 elements should be considered in the preparation. What are the objectives, the priorities, the needs, the motivations to be fulfilled? Next, what solutions could satisfy them at the table? Next, which justifications could help support the solutions I want to keep in the deal? And last, what is my plan B should the negotiation stop? This we call the solution away from the table. The third dimension is about process. How do we run the negotiation? In which there are the 3 remaining elements. Organization. How do we organize the negotiation? Communication. How do we process information exchange? And last but not least, logistics, the material environment for the negotiation. So the following videos of this module will introduce these 10 points you need to look at. And if you want more details, more examples, you may want to turn to chapter 2 of our book, The First Move. Now, 2 more things before you go on. On the one hand, I acknowledge that such a preparation method can look pretty complicated at first sight. But just like any new tool, the more you use it, the more familiar it gets and the more effective it becomes. So go ahead, practice, practice makes perfect. On the other hand, the very spirit of this negotiation method, in order to get prepared, is not to build a fort, lock yourself into it, and then not move out of it whatever happens at the negotiation table. This sort of positionalism, as we called it in Module 1, will not bring you very far. The purpose of preparation is, rather, to decide which useful stuff you need to put into your backpack before entering the jungle, so that whatever the opportunity, you're able to seize it, and whatever the surprise, you're better equipped to cope with it. Now, good luck. Hi, remember, whenever we negotiate about things and problems, we actually negotiate with people, and this is the first dimension of any negotiation. In this people dimension, there are 3 points to look at. The first one is personal relationships between the people at the table. You should build a diagnosis of the existing relationship between the negotiators. And there are 3 basic situations. The first situation, which is very commonplace, is this. You're going to negotiate with someone you've never met before. And given that this is the first time you're meeting with that person, whatever you say first will have a very powerful impact on that person's impressions. And what you say, therefore, has to be very good. And extra care in preparing communication should be made. That first impression is going to be lasting impression. On the other side, your own perceptions might be biased because of assumptions or cliches and stereotypes. Show benevolence and grant the benefit of the doubt. Make sure you have enough time to introduce each other. Build a minimum working relationship before entering the substance. In the second situation, well, you already know the person you're going to negotiate with, you've established rapport, you trust each other, and your relationship is one of respect. Fine. If this is the case, and check twice, then you may move on rapidly to negotiating. The third situation is a little trickier. You've already met the person before, but there was a problem, and this affected your relationship. Research shows, and practitioners confirm, that in this case, you must try to do something about it to stabilize the relationship before attempting to address the substance of your negotiation. Otherwise, whatever you say or put on the table is likely to be negatively rejected. Lee Ross demonstrated the power of this cognitive bias, which he termed reactive devaluation. So providing explanations or even an apology for whatever happened, bringing a small gift, could help mend the relationship. And if you suspect that the situation is even worse, then it is in your own interest to consider changing the cast for this negotiation. The objective is not that you do the negotiation. It is that the negotiation is properly done, if need be, by a colleague of yours. A last option would be to bring in a third party to act as a go-between between the two negotiators. The second element to look at in this people dimension is the vertical relationship. Who is above your head? Setting your negotiation mandate, the instructions that you must absolutely respect in the upcoming negotiation. You need also to identify who is above the head of your opposite number at the negotiation table. Beyond that negotiator, who will actually be the true decision maker to be convinced at the end of the day? And this notion of mandate is so important that we will address it properly in a special video, part of Module 3. Third category of people, stakeholders. These people or entities or organizations are not at the table, so it's easy to forget them. But they hold a stake in the discussion, which is about to take place without them. And there are 2 main reasons to identify them in your preparation. During the negotiation, they could side with either side of the table, thus shifting the power balance. Imagine a simple example. You're about to join a meeting in which you would like to promote a project dear to your heart. Looking at the list of attendees, you realize that several of your friends won't be able to attend this meeting. Call a few of them straight away, saying, well, I'm about to send you an email asking what you think about project X. Please email back saying you support it. And if a couple of them are able to respond, print out their emails and bring this with you at the meeting table. You're no longer isolated, thanks to this coalition involving stakeholders. What's more, after the negotiation, stakeholders can usually support, on the contrary, impede the smooth implementation of the deal. And the purpose of a negotiation is not to reach a deal, It is to reach a good deal that will be implemented. As a result, it is wise to try and anticipate the negative reaction of an important stakeholder in your ecosystem. In order to get more familiar with these three categories, think of a recent meeting you were involved in. Who was at the table? Who sent you to this meeting and to whom you had to report to afterwards? And who was not in this meeting but could or even should have been because of their stakes? You should never forget what negotiation is about. We negotiate, that is, we spend time interacting with others because we need to achieve something. And we think that we can achieve this in a better way with the consent and the input of the other side of the table rather than on our own. As a result, the preparation must help you get the clearest possible understanding of what you want to get from a specific negotiation. There's no way you will reach your objectives if you do not know them in the first place. Now here, let me go into a little bit of terminology. Most negotiation scholars have used two terms, objectives and interests. However, analyzing tons of negotiations and discussing with many high-level negotiators brought us to the following conclusion. Objectives are not that objective, as they tend to include a fair amount of subjectivity. Similarly, most negotiation stakes are not simply about the maximization of quantitative interest by supposedly rational individuals. Real negotiations are far more subtle and complicated. Negotiators are moved by many other, deeper things than objective interests. These can be principles of ethics or emotions, such as anger or fear. That is why we've decided to use the word motivations. Deep inside, which motivations do I try to fulfill through a negotiation? And because it takes at least two to negotiate, what do I know about the motivations of the other negotiator across the table? Here, you must try and dig as deep as you can. You need to uncover, below the superficial position, I want this, your deeper motivation. Why do I want it? And you need to do the same for their motivation. Why do they ask what they ask? Let's take a simple example. Imagine two partners in a startup. They're negotiating their share of the asset. Both of them insist on having more than 50% of the shares, which is clearly impossible, and that leaves no zone of possible agreements. However, digging deeper to understand the core motivations underlying these positions might lead to this. One negotiator's motivation is control. She wants to have the final say on strategic decisions. The other negotiator's deep motivation is return on investment. He wants to have more, as he considers his personal investment in the company will be greater. Once this has been clarified, a mutually satisfactory solution is within reach to distinguish non-voting shares, so that one negotiator yields more revenue without having control over the company decision-making process. Understanding these deeper motivations is absolutely crucial for the negotiator. Indeed, maybe you cannot give away what they ask, that's their position. As a result, the negotiation would stop and fail. But if you manage to understand why they wanted their core motivation, you may manage to put on the table another solution, which is in line with their deep motivation, that they had not thought of, which you can afford and you are allowed by your mandate to give away, and provided, of course, that you get something in return by way of reciprocity. As a result, in your preparation time, you must think hard to identify your motivations, what you need and why, and their motivations, what do they need, and to the best of your knowledge, why. Usually, you don't have lots of information here, so it is useful to prepare the right questions to ask. And do not forget to identify the motivations of relevant stakeholders, people who are not at the table, but they hold a stake in what is about to be discussed without them. Doing this might help you identify shared and compatible motivations. It is in both negotiators' interest to conclude the matter in a swift and discreet manner, for instance. And this should be addressed first in the discussion, as they will help build trust for later. One last thing. Sometimes people ask, what's the difference then between motivations and the mandate? Well, it's pretty simple. The motivation is, I'd like to go as far as possible in that direction. While the mandate is, my boss expects I go at least that far, and this red line I must absolutely respect.